Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 1989 Nissan Sentra. Up front is a 1.6 liter inline 4 and down below is a 4-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Sentra for two reasons. First of all, it's from the 80s and I love 80s cars, but the second reason is that I haven't driven a Sentra this old and I love Nissan of this era. Granted, when I think about Nissan of this era, I think a lot about the Nissan Skylines, the Nissan 240SXs, the 300ZXs, not necessarily their main lineup. And so I'm excited to see what a normal average Nissan of the era was like. But if you would like to share your vehicle with me, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form, takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 1.6 liter under the hood. Well, it's a single overhead cam engine, although new for this facelift of the Sentra that occurred in '88 was that it actually got fuel injection. So this is pumping out a heart-throbbing, a wrist-breaking 90 horsepower. It's not fast, but what it is it feels light, it feels nimble, it feels athletic, where modern Sentras most certainly don't. Now that is in part due to the manual transmission, but also just 80s cars were lighter. They had a more airiness to them, where 90s and 2000s cars got so chunky with airbags and added safety weight. Now like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed manual. Now you could only get the 4-speed on the base model. Once you went up to the nicer trim levels, you actually got either a 5-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic. So the 4-speed is actually kind of rare, albeit it's not great, but it's rare, and rare is cool in the YouTube atmosphere, so we're gonna go with it today. Last but not least about the drivetrain, of course, it is front-wheel drive. However, there was a very rare option for all-wheel drive. So how does it feel to drive the Sentra? Well, like I mentioned with the engine, it does have a light, airy funness to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's here for a good time and here to give you transportation, and that's about it. It's not here to win records, it's not here to break necks, it's not here to impress anyone other than itself, and that is what I love. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have several gauges. Off to the left, I have my lights, my warning lights for like oil, brake, and fasten seatbelts. Then I have my fuel and coolant temperature. And off to the right, I have my speedometer and more warning lights. Again, very characteristic of the 80s to show the warning lights bright as day, even when they're not illuminated. The steering wheel is very typical Nissan from the 80s. No airbag, however, it does have a horn, which is, you know, nice. And then off to the left, I have my climate control vent and my fog light switch, as well as gauge dimmer switch down below. Moving on to the window, we do have manual windows as well as manual mirrors. And then moving into the center, we have two more climate control vents along with our rear defrost and our climate controls, which the owner has added some little tips for me for making this video, or just a reminder to himself. Then I do have the stock radio. No cassette player here, AM, FM, that sort of stuff, and that's all you really need. Then we do have a cigarette lighter and an ashtray, little cubby space, and then we have the shifter. It only has 4 gears up on top of it. It's very rubberized. It is very, very painfully basic, but what I would expect out of a Sentra. Then we do have the handbrake, and we do have a little cubby at the back that could be a cup holder, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the 89 Sentra. However, it fails very predictably, but you gotta test it either way. Then we gotta talk about the seats. The seats are this interesting vinyl material that isn't very friendly, and on a day like today in Southern California, it's a little sticky, but definitely not the end of the world. However, although this is the coupe, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so I'm in the back of the Sentra, and actually, it's not as bad as I'm making it out to seem. There we go. The seats are very cushy, and they have that same vinyl material from up front. Headroom good. Knee room, not the end of the world. It's not it's not like amazing, but like I could sit back here. I am back here, and I'm not angry about it, which is surprising for little cars like this. So I don't get any amenities back here, but I don't really need amenities. I can pop these little quarter windows out if I want, get a little bit of airflow in there, but you don't really have to. Let's hop out, we'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. So something to note about this old car is that it's one key for everything. If you bought an Oldsmobile or like a J-body Cavalier of the era, it was 2 keys, but not this. So this is the trunk space of the '89 Sentra. Nothing crazy, nothing to really blow my mind, but definitely very, very adequate for the era. And by modern standards, this is a whole gazebo. So really, really love that little fact about the '89 Sentra. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and how can you not love the look of this Sentra? It just has such a nostalgic feeling about it. Not only in its light blue color, but its complete boxiness, its over-exaggerated bumpers. This thing is not meant for the 2000s. And that is very, very clear, but that's why I love driving cars like this, because they're so unapologetically a part of their era and nothing else. So, speaking of that, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving a 1989 Nissan Sentra? Well, I have really pleasantly enjoyed my experience. It's a lot more fun to drive than I was thinking it was going to be. And that is helped out by that manual transmission. A similar year Toyota Corolla, or similar era front-wheel drive Corolla, sucked pretty hard. So the bar wasn't super high when it comes to the Sentra. But I was having a conversation last night with another journalist who's been in the industry for over 40 years. And I said, you know what? Nissan really hit their stride in the 80s and the 90s, which I truly believe. The 300ZX, great. The Pulsar, great. Skyline R32, great. 240SX, great. There's so many that I could list off that were really phenomenal. And this car included. I think for its category, for its market, this actually does pretty good. But that journalist said to me, yeah, except that they were broke. And I said, what do you mean? Nissan was really struggling to turn a profit in the 1980s. Part of it was because they were transitioning from the Datsun nameplate, which had all of their holdings, over to Nissan, which no one knew. And so they didn't really have any brand recognition or loyal customers that were guaranteed to buy the cars over and over and over again. This ended up leading them to finding a new CEO in the late 90s who revolutionized and gave us a lot of good things, but then kind of drove the company into the ground, and we don't have to go there. My point being, this era of Nissan is kind of their starving artist era, where no, they weren't turning a profit and they weren't hitting record sales numbers, but their cars felt like they were built with some type of passion. This car isn't fast and they didn't sell all that well, but there's a sort of sense of joy while driving it. It has soul, it has character. It's almost like a little Pixar guy I just want to pick up and hug. Your little buddy running around town. This seems to be an era of Nissan where the numbers didn't really matter. I mean, they did at the end of the day because it put them in dire straits and they almost went bankrupt if it weren't for Renault stepping in. But there's something beautiful and elegant about that. It's like your band's favorite album is probably their first or second album. It probably doesn't go that deep into their discography. Discography? You know what I mean. It's like every sequel in the history of the world. The first one is always better. And then they get too money happy. They lose the feeling of the first movie. It's just not the same. That's exactly what happened here. This feels pure. This feels like they set out with one goal to make an economy car that wasn't awful to drive, and they did it. And that's why I love it so much. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Daniel for letting me take out his '89 Sentra. Such a cool experience. So thankful that he was able to fit me into his schedule. I'm only here in LA for 36 hours maybe. And so we were able to get this together, and I cannot thank him enough for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.